welcome to the International Tourism Resource Network's Wheels Up series. Today we have the exciting and timely relevant topic of alternative revenue sources and other avenues for short-term profits. While some of you attendees join on and still connect here to audio, we have some wonderful panelists joining us from across the industry, going to bring a great perspective. Marcus Shayer from Design Hotels, Cherie Tennessee from the Spa SOS, and Joe Veneto from Veneto Collaboratory are joining us this morning. Thank you all for tuning in here. Some brief housekeeping while we get underway. Make the most out of this attendee. Chat afterwards will be shared as well as a post-panel survey to those that attended this. In that you can be able currently to add your name. Feel free to chime in and share your LinkedIn, company contact information, and any other relevant information that you'd like to be able to share with other attendees. You can also pose questions to myself, the moderator, to ask the panelists. We'll save about the last 10 to 15 minutes to facilitate some of those questions. If you want to also chime in and then share some thoughts in regards to what you're hearing and seeing in the industry, you want to share supplementary YouTube videos, TED Talks, or other links, feel free to do so in that chat question as well to be able to further the conversation and have other attendees view this after the fact. And without further ado, we will dive into the Wheels Up series, alternative revenue sources, and other avenues for short-term profits. This is a really exciting and timely conversation as we are moving through recovery with COVID. Hotels now here in August of 2020 are starting to reopen. But of course, regionally, there are a variety of policies that we are having to navigate. Some are limited in their seating at their restaurants. Some are limited at different levels with turnover and how quickly they're able to have occupancy within their rooms. So we're having to be creative. We're having to reinvent ourselves in the industry and take a step back to look at how and where are we able to derive other revenue, and how can we be able to engage the customers that we do have, perhaps to be able to secure more revenue. So with that, we have a variety of perspectives from boots on the ground on site, those at a director level, and even from a more destination perspective to how we can start navigating the industry and market to be able to secure some more revenue and drive profits so that we can become more resilient through these times and recover more quickly. That said, we have joining us Marcus Shayer, the Senior Vice President of the Americas and Business Innovation for Design Hotels. Marcus is responsible for developing the collections hotel portfolio because supporting business for all member hotels and working within the media and other potential partners, as well as expanding and building brand awareness to reach North and South America. He's leading the global innovation efforts for the organization and introducing new unique services and experiences for the travel and hospitality industry. With more than 15 years of experience in global hospitality, where he has held several senior roles in brand, digital, sales, loyalty, and partnership marketing, he holds a master's in business administration and a PhD in innovation management, as well as being a regular contributor to industry and innovative publications. Marcus, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Eric, for having me. Thank you. Good morning.
Nice to have you back. Joining us is Cherie Tennessee. She started her career in the scientific world with a Bachelor of Science in Biology. Ms. Tennessee spent 7 years as a researcher at world-renowned organizations, including the Johns Hopkins University in Millennium. Ms. Tennessee has used her science background for the last 18 years in the spa and wellness industry including the role as massage therapist, nail tech, spa owner, speaker, professor, educator, and author. In addition to receiving multiple awards through her career, Cherie's writings have been published in some highly respected industry outlets, and she has been asked to speak at many public forums, including IESCS, Face and Body, L&E Spa and Show, and the CBD Expo East. As a professor currently at Johnson & Wales University, she provided leadership and in the development and introduction of the spa management course. As the group education manager at the Sandals Resort International, Red Lane Spas, Cherie launched the Red Lane Institute and provided US-based training to therapists in the Caribbean. Miss Tennessee is completing a doctorate of business administration and holds a master's with a concentration in marketing and entrepreneurship. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for being able to provide some great perspective from this domain. We're excited to be able to have you.
Thank you, Eric. I'm excited to be here today.
Last but not least, Joe Veneto, founder and principal of Veneto Collaboratory, formerly Opportunities Limited, a management, consulting, and training company that specializes in design, development, and delivery of unforgettable customer experiences. He collaborates with tourism, hospitality, and service-related companies to create results that generate economic development and lifelong customer loyalty. He is an expert in design, development, and delivery of compelling customer experiences. Joe has assisted in destination marketing organizations, lodging companies, and travel attractions through the North Americas to create destination development strategies and new experiences that generate revenues and results. He is the creator and the founder of Experience Lab, a unique event held annually that immerses tourism and hospitality executives in the strategies and skills to innovate their customer experience. He is a tourism industry thought leader of the design and development and delivery of compelling visitor experiences and speaks annually at industry conferences and events. Joe, good morning. Thank you for being able to provide this awesome perspective.
Good morning, Eric. Great to be with you. Great to be with this team, and also great to happy to lend my support any way I can to help the industry.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's start out with an easy one to get the conversation rolling. I am curious, given the times and how agile the entire industry has had to be, share with me, let's start with you, Joe. What part does mindset of the leadership of the core team play in implementing strategies that will generate results? How are they having to be creative, and how are we having to be able to just tweak how we view the landscape right now?
So great question. And, mindset actually plays a foundational role in how we all deal with the pandemic. And I don't have to tell anybody, but the travel industry is in turmoil, and all of us are being forced to do things that we're probably not as comfortable with. When I think about the hotel industry and lodging companies, and the fact that right now the market is a hyper-local leisure market. Hyper-local leisure market is something that a lot of hotel organizations may not be that comfortable with or familiar with. And so the part that mindset plays is it plays in that we're going to be dealing for a while with things that are ambiguous and uncomfortable. And there's been research done on this. In fact, there was an article this morning in the New York Times about mindset. And it talked about having a growth mindset as opposed to having a fixed mindset. Now, a growth mindset allows you to create possibility versus a fixed mindset, which tends to look at situations and abilities as given. Now, the reason that I talk about these two is, number one, the growth mindset allows us to continue even if we fail. And for those of us in the travel industry right now, the biggest thing we need is possibility thinking, which means we need to be testing and trying things on a regular basis. That means that we need to have a mindset that we're going to be doing a lot of things. Not everything's going to work, but we need to continue moving forward to kind of figure out what it is that's going to work. And so fundamentally, that mindset is going to allow us to move forward despite the challenges, despite the ambiguity, and despite all the things that are happening around us.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm sure Marcus has a lot to share about this. Coming from the property level for brands, where we've had to have a traditional focus in hospitality on multiple revenue channels, share with us how at Design Hotels you guys have looked for opportunities for independent lifestyle hotels to create new or alternative revenue channels for your properties.
Yeah, first of all, I'm excited to hear from Joe speaking about experiments and testing. I think that's such a critical piece moving forward. And I'm preaching this since quite some time. And I think we all learn now in this COVID-19 phase that we have to be flexible. I was talking to someone yesterday about what are we doing in November. I said, I don't even know what we do next week, right? It's really like working day to day. And figuring out and think where is the world going. We have to be agile as an industry. We have to experiment. There was an interesting article also in I think Harvard Business Review where they were talking about the OTAs, which we always discuss within the hospitality industry, and obviously we're not excited sometimes about third-party platforms. But they do, for example, at Booking.com, they do about 20,000 tests a year. And we in hospitality often kind of stick to programs. We think we have the feeling they work in order to avoid this failure, right? And failure is so important to move on. So I think that's absolutely critical. Where we have lived in hospitality, obviously heavily on rooms, and I think it's about a $500 billion US dollar a year hospitality is making in rooms, and then the other big part of an F&B. I think moving forward, when we talk in particular about lifestyle hotels, there will be other revenue channels we have to explore beyond rooms and F&B, which remain obviously strong components. But I think and we're seeing this across the industry, as we are getting more into experience, as we're creating more hotels which become cultural hubs, community hubs. People want to go at a space for a purpose, and I think moving forward, people will take much more conscious decisions when they travel and when they want to meet people. So I think the typical front desk room approach doesn't work anymore. We have to explore other channels. At Design Hotels, obviously, this is one of our core principles. I think, and this results out completely out of these kind of new habits we have while we're traveling. We're not limited to a location anymore, which used to be our office. We can basically, we're seeing this right now. This is a gigantic kind of new experiment socially, where everyone is working in a place they choose, right? Which is, and the majority of the workforce is probably not going back to the office. The freedom of education, where homeschooling, e-learning, I think would be a completely new field, and we're much more in control of our time. And this opens up completely new opportunities for us in hospitality. Is it retail? Is it more membership spaces? People will stay longer in our hotels. They're not limited to their school vacation anymore. But we have to experiment. We have to test, back to Joe's point, about what are these channels beyond rooms and F&B.
Cherie, bring some light to how wellness in particular within hospitality and for each property is a great division, has a lot of opportunity for deriving some alternative revenues. Can you share what you're seeing in that discipline?
Fantastic.
I can hear you now.
If you look at the Perfect. If you look at the research that's happening in the industry, if you look at a Harvard Business Review or a CRE, one of the biggest trends that they predicted for 2020 was that of wellness. where hotels were seeking ways beyond just spas to incorporate this concept of wellness into the guest experience. Looking at innovation like Mirror, that was just bought for several $100 million, where the guests they didn't have to leave the room in order to have that fitness experience. If you think about, and I heard this quote the other day, when you think about what we're dealing with, it's actually physical distancing, but social connecting. And that really is the definition of wellness, where we can interact with other individuals and have those experiences. And looking at the Global Wellness Institute, GWI, they actually stated that wellness tourism was going to be the fastest growing sector. In their last report, it generated $639 billion. So you see a lot of different organizations really are trying to incorporate this concept of wellness, self-care in the room, giving travelers a reason, as Marcus said, beyond just staying in a room, but what else can you experience while you're at that location? And as guests are getting healthier, more mindful, it's not necessarily about the drinking happy hour, but the workout happy hour. Or, can I take a meditation class? What is it I can do, especially now in the midst of COVID, where our mindsets and, having to be confined in so many different places, we're looking for that connection. So those locations that can provide that wellness, that can bring people together virtually, are going to be successful.
So there's the typical lens which we are able to view wellness and what has been done formally within the industry. And there's undoubtedly some ways that we've had to adapt, some more innovative, progressive ways to be able to create these events for our guests and to also then create some revenues for our hotels. Bring to light, if you will, what are some of those alternative ways to be able for the audience to look at how they can leverage the assets that they currently have on property? What else can they do to drive some additional revenue streams within the wellness realm?
Technology, I think, is one of the number one ways. I mean, we have Zoom, we have Instagram TV, you have so many other ways that you can connect. And it's a great time to build those partnerships that maybe you hadn't necessarily thought about before, where you could work with a fitness individual and do an exercise class, or maybe you bring in a meditation specialist. Maybe you're bringing in a dietitian so that we don't have the COVID-19 pounds that a lot of us are dealing with. But being able to utilize technology to still get that message across and connect with that consumer. And you can do that in a hotel room. I mean, they all have smart TVs, having them have the option to click on, is there a fitness center around the corner that's offering a class, or they're offering some sort of meditation or a healthier diet that can be brought into the room. As you look at it, I'm sure that Marcus and Joe can speak to this, we're seeing a lot more where they're dining, guests are dining in room. They don't necessarily want to sit in the restaurant. They want more of the private suites so that they can keep to themselves. So being able to offer them wellness in that setting is going to be able to help you increase your revenue tremendously.
Marcus, I know that you guys are exploring this as well. Share with us the virtual versus physical services that you guys are navigating moving forward.
Yeah, what was interesting to see in the times of the lockdown where people were not able to travel, we had a great as design hotels, but also our member hotels, great interaction with our global community of travelers, right? And that was really fascinating to see, and this was around music, this was around playlists, this was around food, this was around fashion, this was around wellness, to share his point. And even when people were not physically able to travel or meet in a space. And I think moving forward for highly curated hotel brands, hospitality brands, there's a huge opportunity to build almost a second pass versus the physical now in a virtual component. We have done some of the things in the past where we obviously focus a lot on content, and some of our experiences were highly visual and content and distributed, and people watched it even they were not at the physical event. But I think now this opens up a new opportunity for hotels. And we're launching, give you one example, we're launching our first virtual retreat in 3 weeks from now, where we're taking 35 of our best clients around the world on a 4-week journey. And this is a journey of self-development, education, learning. And we think we can have a deeper conversation with our best clients around the world in really exploring what this future of travel is than you could probably have on any of these big sales shows, which anyway, most of them are canceled or postponed, right? So I think this can be a deeper conversation and really exploring what's out there, what's this new travel. I mean, you think about our clients are in this kind of new shifting in this new mindset, to Joy's point earlier about what are we selling, what are the destinations we're going, what are these new consumer habits, how are we actually collaborating in the industry moving forward. So really excited about this virtual retreat, and I think we will see much more of this in our ecosystem. But I think great opportunity for the entire industry, building physical and virtual travel, where education has anyway become or learning has become a key part of the travel. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things happening in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Joe, let's bring this up a notch. What are you seeing from the destination level? How are we able to create these remarkable experiences for our audience, our network, our communities? What are you seeing that echoes what Cherie and Marcus are sharing on more of a property level?
So what I would say first and foremost is that hotels and lodging companies need to get outside of their properties, right? The mindset for the resources in their communities on a health and wellness standpoint or from a provider standpoint, they're outside the hotel. They're outside of the building. So in other words, to realize that your property is in context with your destination, and to find these experts, these authorities, whether it's in a health and wellness space, meditation, gyms, etc., or it may be other providers. What I can tell you is, one example in the health and wellness space, the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Naples, Florida, has been working for about a year in the wellness space. And they've been bringing in providers as well as doing some things on site. But they've been creating an experience called Wellness Wednesdays. And Wellness Wednesdays is the day where they have all these activities and they bring in these experts to partner with them. Now, they're really just scratching the surface. And as Cherie just said, there's huge opportunity. But if you think from a destination standpoint, how do you create experiences that are going to be valuable to hotels? Madison, Wisconsin is a destination that we've been working with for the past couple of years on designing and developing these really unique experiences with cultural sites, historic sites, breweries, restaurants, etc. And what we've been doing over the past couple months is we've actually been converting these to virtual experiences. So imagine Middleton, Wisconsin. They have 2 sites. One is a brewery called Capital Brewery, and they've got some flagship brews, but they also have some really amazing small craft batch beer. And what they're doing is they're doing literally a beer tasting with cheese. And they're in the process right now of taking that virtual. Now, local people could buy that and pick up the beer and the food and all those kinds of things, and then again jump on Zoom in an evening and have this and walk through this experience. But at the same time, each of the hotels in Middleton, Madison, Wisconsin can use that experience and package it in. So imagine you've got 3-day, 2-night as opposed to a 2-day, 1-night. And one of those evenings, what you're doing is you're incorporating a craft beer experience where it's a guided experience. The the materials, the food is delivered to your room. You jump on Zoom, and now you're going through and you're having this experience. So we're converting these type of experiences, and what we're trying to do is we're doing it strategically so that when they're creating these, they're doing it over weekends so that those weekend components can be wrapped in. Because again, when we look at the leisure market, this is where the demand is. The other thing that I want to say about creating demand is that, and it was alluded to earlier, you know, for the fall and the winter, with kids probably not going back to school, a lot of families are going to be working, they're going to be schooling, we're going to be in the same place doing all of those things. People are going to be ready to trade their cocoon at home to a cocoon in a hotel, if it's safe and if these experiences are added to the room. So these other experiences are additional revenue streams that can be built in through the partners in a destination.
I think that last part is one that just merits a little bit of emphasis, and that is creating a true experience, not just an event, but an experience, and really being intentful about thinking through that, because translating the same experience through a camera, through a lens is way different. And Zoom is no doubt one avenue to do that. I'm sure there's a multitude of others right now as well for the attendees to be able to explore, you know, some other ways to bring that to life. I know Facebook Live at one time was very, very open source. They've started to pull back on things like embedding ads and other revenue streams that you could be able to derive. But YouTube has a whole streaming service. What are some other perhaps more tactical things that they could be able to look at to be able to bring these experiences to life, and how could they look at you know, creating profits off them besides subscribing or buying in, you know, to that? What are some other ways that they could be able to make that experience more lucrative?
So one of the things that hotels should also look at is how can they offer guests exclusive experiences. So imagine you have, you could do some on-site experiences with a chef, so a culinary experience. You also have lots of ballroom space, lots of meeting space right now because it's not being used. So you can certainly spread out. But in addition to that, if you think for the fall and winter, museums and historic sites or sites in a destination, creating something that's going to have exclusive access. So in other words, you're going in early or you're going to be there after hours. And maybe you're with an expert or an authority about a museum or historic site, et cetera. All of those offer opportunities to create something that is really unique and really exclusive. The Cooperstown Inn, Cooperstown, New York, so Baseball Hall of Fame is located in Cooperstown. The Cooperstown Inn for several years has created this VIP weekend experience. And what they've been doing is they've been offering it in their shoulder season and their off season. But what they do is they have an exclusive experience behind the scenes to see the archives. Well, if you're a baseball nut, you're gonna buy this package for that experience because you can't get it any other way. And so again, these are exclusive alternative revenue streams partnering with the assets and the attractions in a destination. And again, when you think about, you know, social distancing and numbers, a lot of these attractions have had to really recalibrate the numbers of people that are coming in. So they're more open to doing something, to having these different activations in the morning, pre, or later in the day, again, to garner this additional revenue. The hotels and the lodging companies use these as exclusive experiences, again, to be able to be wrapped in. They create an offering. And the other thing I would say is to focus on multiple nights. In other words, I don't want to sell one night, and I'm sure Marcus can speak to this. I want to sell 2 nights or 3 nights. So they have to build these other components in to be able to generate longer stays and expand the revenue for the property.
Yeah, Marcus, this sounds like it certainly echoes Design Hotel's innovation approach, really involving the public sector, partners, and other industries. Can you elaborate on, more tactically how you guys have found success in doing that, and what the attendees can glean from this to do this themselves?
Yeah, on the innovation approach, starting with to add to Joe's point on what does it mean for operation and the business mix. But on the innovation approach, I think what I strongly believe that it needs to be a collective innovation approach, and this includes public and private sector and other partners. When you look at what's happening with the big topics we have as a society, and this is like all the discussions we had prior to COVID-19 or climate change. There is probably, if you would throw in all the know-how, all the funding, all the research we have, we will probably be in a much better spot. The problem is that every institution is fighting almost for their own kind of sake, and COVID-19 is another great example of this, where every government here in the United States, every state, even every hospital is kind of trying to find a solution to this pandemic. And I strongly believe we as hospitality industry, this needs to be a broader conversation. We need to reach out to other partners inside the industry, outside the industry, public and private sector, and to find solutions and offerings and products which have a relevance moving forward. And to Joe's point, if you look at, give you one example, we're seeing safety and security is getting more important. People really want to understand in which space they're going, who they're meeting, and so far we're seeing actually that people are also willing to pay a premium for that, which is also a big question, obviously, for hospitality, because obviously your costs going up. But what we're seeing so far, early stages, yes, people are willing to pay a premium for that. Having the safety and security, I think one of the concepts we're seeing moving forward is something like self-containment, right? Obviously, the global supply chain doesn't work. We've clearly seen this in the pandemic. So everything around agriculture, urban farming, collaborating with the private and public sector, and creating an experience out there, which obviously goes into wellness, which goes way probably, and hopefully Sherry, you agree with me, it goes way beyond this typical kind of treatment room in the basement a lot of hotels have. And this wellness is a much bigger topic about mindset, well-being, your state of mind, and everything. So I think that we will see much more, and there's a big opportunity to collaborate between private and public sector, and this will lead us to obviously people staying long in our space. It's not anymore like the trips where you just go in a destination to have one meeting and you stay a night. Probably a lot of this will be replaced virtually moving forward as we're getting used to new technology. But I'm not worried about it, because as long as you create an experience, as long as there's a purpose why you're going in the space around your well-being, and well-being is such an important topic, because you need to make sure that you're kind of antibody and everything is in shape, like in this pandemic. So I think we can play a vital role here. So I think a collective innovation approach is important. Ideally, including more partners outside the industry, and then finding new concepts, new products, which kind of catering to these new consumer habits. We're seeing it. If we're achieving this, I think we have a very interesting future ahead of us. And obviously, when a lot of people say, when are we getting back to normal? A lot of things in normal didn't work. Let's be honest to ourselves, right? So there was a lot of things happening in the industry which were just nonsense. When you look at the development happening in some markets, the overdevelopment in certain markets, half through thought concept, raised a lot of money. I think if we get together, if we focus on the right thing, which is a great opportunity right now, I think that's pretty interesting.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said there. In particular, the thing that stuck out to me was that where corporate America is traveling for one night, many of those, not all, certainly award ceremonies and others will merit actually meeting in person, but there are probably a lot of meetings that, as the technology and the landscape supports it, are going to go virtual. And no doubt there are ways to be able to capitalize on that from the hotel standpoint as well. But you kept setting Cherie up. Cherie, give us your perspective as to some of the brands that are leading this charge in the wellness space right now. What are you seeing the landscape do, and how are they evolving?
So we're seeing a big trend in wellness, more of like your mineral spas going back to West Virginia. The Roosevelt 2 Bath House in Sarasota Spa State Park just invested millions of dollars in revitalizing that whole experience, from the front lobby, the rooms, and the spas themselves, so that people, again, are trying to leave the city, as Marcus and Joe said, to kind of get away, physically distance themselves, while just really looking at how they can take care of themselves a little bit better. The other brand that really seems to be leading the charge in this concept of transformative wellness is Sixth Sense. They are actually looking at building, or they were in the process of a building in New York City. They have been able to relaunch a lot of their brands in Southeast Asia. I was listening to a call the other week with the CEO, and he was talking about, again, individuals really want those private cabanas. They don't want to leave. They want to be in the ocean. They want to figure out how to decompress, de-stress. And it's mental, it's spiritual, it's physical, it's emotional. You know, we're kind of, how we're feeling in our houses kind of confined, and being able to give individuals the opportunity to come out, to play, to connect. It's really interesting to watch them. And, you know, I teach at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm the program director there, and we're getting ready to have class in a little bit. And one of the properties that I'm going to bring up is Virgin, where they actually did open a hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, July 1st. So, you know, it really is about that uniqueness. As Marcus and Joe said, it's about the experience, where they have a Dolly Parton rooftop experience, you know, of course, with the social distancing, but getting creative, figuring out what the consumers really want, which is to be out, be safe, and to be able to have that connection that's going to enhance their overall well-being. So those are the brands that I really see leading the charge. And I think this whole COVID is really pushing wellness in so many other directions. I said it a couple of years ago, like, spas are going to have to transform to wellness, but it's going to be the same for various hotel brands. I was the director of spa and wellness for Mandarin Oriental in Washington, D.C., and before I left, we were actually looking to partner with Lululemon to do walking tours around the Tidal Basin, which is literally out the back door of the hotel. So those kind of things where you can get back into nature, you know, doctors were prescribing walks in nature for mental health. Those are the same things that hotels can easily put together with their concierge of, okay, we're going to have this person, we're going to go for a walk, even if it's around the city, just to explore. You know, we were looking at having a historical tour guide do it as well, to be able to share the importance of the, you know, the different DC locations, but really getting creative in the services and the way that they're connecting and the experiences that they want to offer. I too will be homeschooling in the fall, and I'm putting my list together. I'm looking at Luray Caverns, we're looking at Mount Vernon, and where we can go to get out of the house, where it's not going to be tons of people, but we can take what's being learned in the classroom out, and a lot of consumers are seeking.
I think so much of this is predicated on demand. While all of these ideas that we're continuing to flush out are great to be able to expand in our engagement and revenues with our guests, we need to be able to reassure them that the experiences that we have are safe and secure, and that means generating demand. Joe, what are some of the best ways for properties to generate this whole hotel demand, whether it be extended stays or other ways to develop increased revenues? Can you bring to life how from your perspective, you're seeing hotels should approach the demand generation amongst their guests?
So what I would say, Eric, to your point around safety, first and foremost, I need to see it and feel it. It has to be real. From the moment I go to your website, I don't want to click on click here for COVID information. I literally want to see what you're doing. I want to see pictures of how you're taking care of, the property, et cetera. And then I want to know what I can expect when I get there. Because what people are asking is, can I trust what you're saying? Can I be confident? I would tell you that I have stayed once in July and once in August at an internationally branded hotel, one of the top 5. I'm not going to name them, but has a major initiative around safety. I've walked into a hotel twice, and that initiative was nowhere to be found. Neither were wipes and sanitizer. I mean, so, already my experience, like my expectation was already there. Okay, this is great. They're part of this brand. I trust this brand. I'm loyal to this brand. And yet those, it was a disconnect. And so at that point, you get the feeling of, you're on your own. Well, if that's how you start, then everything else that you put into that experience, right, going, working with partners outside or on site, you're going to spend the next, day or maybe the whole trip trying to get that level of trust back up. So first and foremost, it's the trust and it's the confidence and it's the touch points. And if we've got those done first, that's the foundation, then these other things can happen. But as I said earlier, the key for me is you need to think outside the hotel, and you need to think inside the hotel. One of the things that I have seen is that, there's been this real pullback regarding services on property. And I understand, where we are. Like financially, we're in a tough spot. But if I'm going to check into a hotel and it's just going to be a room, I could also go to the YMCA. In other words, if there's nothing else there, if there's no food and beverage, if there are no other services that are part of that, there has to be an understanding at the property level and for the lodging companies that there has to be minimal services. People need to think like the visitor, because if every time I need to eat, I need to go out, or I need to, find something else, I have to source all these things. So there needs to be a balance between things on property that, you're going to provide, and then services from the outside. So those elements, food and beverage elements, wellness elements, other experience elements, all of those things need to be pulled together. And here's the other thing, quickly, because we just ran a program 2 weeks ago called Hyper Local, Hyper Fast. 30 days. You have 30 days to be able to get your product out into the market to test them, and you need to go find the people that are part of your destination that are going to help you, support you. And again, you don't need lots of components. You need to think, who are the potential travelers and what are the kinds of things that they're going to be looking to do, right? So again, your market's hyper local. Those visitors are leisure. And the other thing I want to just say is we also want to think, how can we convert visiting friends and relatives? So VFR is a category acronym that we use in the industry. We want the relatives to come and visit their family. We don't want them to stay with their relatives. We want them to stay in a hotel. Much nicer, keep the peace, keep your distance, but come and see us. And again, an opportunity to be able to create packages for, I call it a keep your distance, keep the peace package. Have the relatives come and stay in the hotel.
I like that a lot. I'm going to have to use that with my family when they come in town here. Marcus, this brings up a great understanding of how the business mix is going to be evolving. What is your perspective on how that is adapting over time, and what are you guys seeing in particular with your hotels going forward through this and going forward on the other side of this pandemic?
Yeah, again, I think we'll see different business mix for hospitalities moving forward beyond rooms and F&B. A couple of things you mentioned already. I think virtual becomes a new channel almost. I think we will see from a development side, we will see a different design and architecture where we're collaborating with other spaces. So when you look at so far, there's a hotel, there's a co-working space, there's a co-living space, there's residential. I think we will see much more what I call hybrid spaces moving forward, where you have hotel accommodation, private residences, co-working, startups, wellness, maybe even medical service under one roof, where you have the flexibility on demand of opening, closing certain areas. I think there will be a different design architecture, and I'm not going in interior design now, where it's obviously a very healthy conversation right now. How will the design of the spaces change, right? So I think from a development side, there will be a change. From a guest mix, we will see a more mixture between local and global audience, where and probably beyond geographics, where right now a lot of hotels define their audience on certain countries or feeder markets. They were looking into languages. I think the audience will be much more diverse, and there will be a good mix between local, international, and global, which is a good thing. We will see, and that's where I think also technology comes into play, where we will see. I think people connect to a space more, not about, as I said, like where I'm coming from, or this is a feeder market. It's more about what are my needs, what are my values, and I want to be in that space where we will see much more around membership, almost membership clubs. Hotel become a membership space moving forward, and there's an opportunity for technology providers to partner with. So I think this list goes on and on. Safety and security, more like, as you're seeing right now, more long-term stays, which used to be in the past on a couple of brands probably focused on long-term. As you're not unlimited to certain vacations or your university curriculum or whatever it was, it's like you will live, work, and travel almost in one space with your family moving forward. So I think we'll look at a much more diverse business mix, which I think is exciting because there's opportunities out there, but we have to be flexible, we have to be agile, we have to be okay to test and experiment, and I'm confident that we as an industry are able to do that.
I love that idea of exploring ways to partner with other tech providers and move towards some facet of a subscription-based model. I think that given the nature of people working remote, students now attending remote, I mean, we just heard Cherie say that, people are looking for places to be able to go and have that different peace of mind, that different experience. And no doubt business owners are becoming more globally connected, and there's an opportunity to create a landscape for the digital nomad that wants to be able to stay for extended periods of time, network with other business owners, be able to interact with the destination's experiences and activities. So I think that's a really smart way for hotels to look at and secure extended stays and, create loyalty amongst that user base. Thank you for sharing that one. I think that's a really good one.
You got when you saw the announcement, Facebook, other companies, they're talking right now about not bringing their workforce back in the office space by end of next year. But even beyond that, and even we have a vaccine tomorrow, I think, it's probably, we're probably like 70% of the workforce has been in an office space. It's probably the opposite, where 30% stays in an office space, 70% is more remote. Something which we have seen anyway moving forward, but COVID-19 is an accelerator for this movement. And if you imagine like 70% of the workforce is not going back into office space, they will need places, physically places to meet, to connect, but they also will need other programs where companies looking for how they can keep the culture within their workforce, right? And this goes into work programs, but this goes into leisure programs like, wellness is a great example, content, learning. So I think there's a huge opportunity, and from offerings, but also, as you said, Derek, to a subscription model.
Great, thank you. Cherie, do you have some final thoughts, other ideas that have come to life here as we wrap this panel and conversation up? Other final takeaways for the audience to explore how they can be able to attack, whether it's wellness or something at in a broader stroke?
It's interesting what Joe said about people wanting to see that in the videos. And I have to say a lot of spas have been a little slow in that. So I'm actually doing an article for Skinny Magazine. And one of the first things I said is you need to be able to show them that it's going to be safe, that you have thought about and are addressing all of their issues and concerns. So before you start looking at, different offerings or packages that you want to create, the biggest hurdle is going to be that intangibility. Like they can't see it, they can't feel it unless they get there, and that's a major issue and a major concern. So I know brands were looking at artificial intelligence, and not every location has that kind of budget, but if you could show like how you're, what is your front desk experience? What is it going into the room, and how they're preparing for that interaction and what you've put in place, then people, I think, will be a little bit more interested to look at the actual service offerings, the packages, the new deals, everything else that you have. But I think the key is to address those safety concerns that all of us have, that we're not setting ourselves up, especially from someone who took a road trip in June and was very excited to get back home. If I had seen what they were doing, I probably wouldn't have gone. So definitely, I think the first thing as you are looking at how to move and pivot and adapt is addressing like the elephant in the room, which is going to be, how are we going to take care of you when you come into our location, whatever that may be, and then how are you going to be able to enjoy yourself once you get here, would probably be the biggest takeaway that I offer.
Thank you. Joe, final thoughts? Anything else to contribute for the attendees to go back and implement themselves into their organizations?
So at this point, what I want to do is say to people, you've got to jump in. You've got to jump in the water, and you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The solutions will become apparent as you start to get out and test. But look at your hotel, look at your property in the context of your destination, because your destination partners are going to be able to help. And in addition, I want to put a plug in for destination marketing organizations, convention and visitors bureaus, because they represent a huge asset to the lodging industry. They have for years, right, worked in tandem for meetings, conferences, and conventions. But even now, there's some opportunities, there are initiatives that most DMOs are taking to drive visitation. So again, if you're going to start packaging, the outlet of a DMO may have some marketing initiatives, some promotional initiatives that you can dovetail in and really leverage what it is that you're doing beyond your own customers. So I just say, move fast, test, and see what works, so that you can see what you continue to do, and what doesn't work, you can stop doing. The key at this point is we need a way to fill the fall and the winter, because we're not moving anywhere. Things are going to be very much like they are until we get really creative. And we are a creative industry, everybody needs to know that we can find the solutions to do what we need to do to generate demand. But we just need to have that growth mindset and jump in.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspective. That's certainly why we're here at the International Tourism Resource Network. A very dense and full conversation here with a lot for hotels and properties to take a look at how they implement just a few of these kernels into their organization and how that changes their revenues and their profitability. A few great takeaways are, first and foremost, just to ensure that we're getting people through the door. And the way that that's going to happen is by building trust, by building transparency, by showing and reassuring our guests, prospective guests, what the experience will look like. And then not just showing it, but being able to walk the talk, actually follow through and make sure that signage and sanitization and the like is actually being fulfilled. From there, once we have people's attention and in the door, we can look at additional ways. We can go virtual. We can look at creating remarkable experiences where we're able to create even exclusivity amongst our audience and be able to charge for that. Wellness is no doubt a trend for us to be able to unpack and look at multiple ways to be able to create experiences for our guests on property or online. And how can we be able to share that with others, whether that be live streaming or really unique curated events around our destination, bringing in others, whether that be, those to cook food or that are local breweries and have a history. There's a lot there we can be able to do to be able to serve our audience. And finally, last takeaway I had really was being able to be creative, to be innovative, to take a step back and just take action, knowing that we're never going to be able to quite get it right, but sitting on our hands isn't going to do anyone any good. In hospitality, we're here to serve, we're here to create experiences, and it's time for us to be able to all do our part in that and to share. So we'd love for you all to share your feedback, what has worked for you all and your organizations with the larger industry through the International Tourism Resource Network. ITRN.global is where you can sign up and be able to create an account, get wonderful resources like this video and access to incredible thought leaders and change makers like Marcus, Joe, and Cherie. So we employ you, we invite you to be able to tap in and do your part in helping the industry become more resilient. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, our panelists, for shedding some amazing perspective and illuminating some great ways for our audience to create some alternative revenue sources. We appreciate your time and commitment to making the industry better.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be on the panel with these extraordinary gentlemen.
Thanks, Eric. Great to be with you.
Very good. Coming up next week, we have a panel around sustainability through COVID. What does it look like to have sustainable practices, sustainable design, and sustainable initiatives that can still be profitable without breaking the bank? We look forward to seeing you then, and have a wonderful week.
You can be able to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more information and get involved in the community and share your own voice and perspective.